Is it that time for Kyler Murray to take what's his with things seemingly settling into place? And do they still have to do some things with this roster to be ready for week one? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. You know, on Locked On Cardinals, I like to kind of think in bigger picture at times, as most other entities do. And today's one of those days. We're going to talk Kyler Murray, which we haven't a whole lot, this offseason. We'll discuss about the future pace and goals of this organization, as well as what else needs to be done with this roster. I brought the lesser talented host of this show on earlier in the week, and now finally we get some actual brains here. Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals, joins the show. Johnny, what the hell's going on, man?
Clancy, my guy, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it. And of course, it's all love with Bo Brock. So, Johnny, you guys have had exhaustive draft coverage. You've gone through all the draft picks. Everybody and their mother knows the Cardinals had 12 picks. Darius Robinson was looked at as a reach, even though he wouldn't have been there with the Cardinals and picking in the second round. Cardinals trade back, get their CB1 potentially, and on down the list, adding talent in positions of need, but not talent that is going to be thrust into action before it's ready, like we've seen with Steve Keim drafts in years past. But we know all that, okay? Kyler Murray is somebody, quarterback, I don't know if people remember, who hasn't been talked about a bunch. Talk to me about what you think Kyler Murray's goals are for 2024, and if it's playoff or bust, or if we're still a year away from that.
No, I think Kyler Murray has the expectation that if he is healthy and starts 17 games, which I'm sure if you asked him is a goal for him, that they'll be a playoff team. And given his sample size in the NFL, having been drafted in 2019, that's accurate. If Kyler Murray plays the entirety of a season outside of his rookie year, they're either in the postseason mix or they're making the playoffs. So I don't understand this narrative out there that, yeah, the Cardinals, they have a liability at quarterback. He's in the bottom half of the league. No. History says, with a college head coach that was a failure, and Vance Joseph and Steve Keim, he's a playoff quarterback. And now I think you add the elements of Marvin Harrison Jr., a full healthy offseason, an offense that doesn't ask him to do quite as much. I think the offense is going to play to his benefit. People don't seem to grasp, Clancy, the fact that this is a quarterback that was basically 500 at the end of last year. Prater makes one of those two kicks. They go 4-4 with Kyler Murray with what was the toughest strength of schedule in the NFL. And then you also think about, okay, his numbers look modest to a lot of people. If you project what his numbers were last year with, I would say, bottom third roster, he's got over 30 touchdowns. I mean, I just think at the end of the day, Kyler Murray's played 17 games. This is a wild card team, and he has a nice efficient season. That's not a hot take. I mean, it's really kind of Jared Goff 2.0. When he left the Rams, a lot of people, thought his career was done. He had a second half revival. I think Kyler Murray is exponentially more talented than Jared Goff.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I've struggled explaining to people, because it's hard to grasp, especially in this fantasy football, sports betting world where numbers speak and the amount of touchdowns. We've been graced watching Kyler Murray have 350 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns. We've seen it. Okay, and we've seen him throw 17 for 22 for 195, a touchdown, and then a touchdown on the ground, and the Cardinals win that way also. It's hard for me to sell to people, even though it's the truth in my opinion. This is going to be a run-first team. This is James Conner. This is Trey Benson. This is play action. It's Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Kyler Murray doesn't have to earn his contract only by throwing for 300 yards, 50 yards on the ground, and 3 total touchdowns. It can look different, right?
Yeah, I think it's the best version to keep Kyler Murray upright, frankly. We saw the backyard football that was Cliff Kingsbury and a bunch of undersized receivers. They've gone completely away from that. And it's an offense that I think lends himself to his mobility in play action and also, his deep passing game that I think is going to return in folds this year. So, yeah, I again, He's always been a high completion accuracy quarterback. He's always been somebody that has big explosive plays. His biggest knock for some people is just, can he stay healthy? This is the offense to do it. It's not going to be asked to throw 45, 50 times a game. It's going to be an offense now with, I think, an above average offensive line, an above average play caller that's going to get head coaching interviews next year, and big physical targets. Like, go back to the history of Kyler Murray since he's been in the NFL. He prefers talented guys, yes, but guys that can get open, separate, and are over 6 feet. Now their offense outside of Greg Dortch, that's everybody. So I just, this narrative that there's some 6.5 win team when you've got a guy like, they want Kyler Murray to be a $50 million quarterback. Like, everybody wants that. Everybody has that expectation. He's been living at the facility. So the margin for playoff teams, the haves and the have-nots in the NFC, is differentiated by quarterback play. So if Kyler Murray plays good quarterback play, like, it doesn't matter really what the rest of the roster looks like. It helps that they got better, but that Kyler Murray is going to be the reason whether or not they make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And one of my things that I've said forever is the best offensive lineman the Arizona Cardinals have is Kyler Murray's legs. And I don't think that needs to be implemented anymore. As you mentioned, you can watch a Philadelphia Eagles. You can watch Jalen Hurts run over. The numbers are awesome. The touchdowns are awesome. But when it comes down to it, can you complete a 3rd and 8 in a must-have first down? And I would trust Kyler Murray more than most quarterbacks in the NFL, especially with the carousel that's going on, to be able to do it. And I agree with you. Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals. He and Bo Brock do a great job over there. Follow him at Johnny Venerable on Twitter. It's just fascinating how Kyler's like an afterthought at this point, because it's a set-and-forget guy, and the Cardinals don't have many of those. And it's interesting. And one last question before we pivot here to my next question about this potentially having the brightest future roadmap for the Cardinals, especially with the money they have to spend next year and their full bevy of picks. Do you see this as being a 60-40 pass team in any stretch, in any way, unless they're down at some point in the game? Like, is there any world where Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride don't get, they get 25 targets combined, and then they're running the ball the rest of the time? I mean, is that pretty much what you see it as?
No, I think the offense is going to be predicated on, can they be in a position to keep the game close? Can they be in a position defensively to not get run over? Like we saw at times last year, like Jonathan Gannon onside kicked in a final possession against Philadelphia because he knew his defense was out of gas. And while I like the defense and the strides they've made, they have a ways to go. Like PFF just had them as the 32nd ranked defense. I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but what does that speak to? An offense that needs to go 3 and out with 3 straight passes, a la Cliff Kingsbury? No, leads an offense that 3, 4, 5 yards in a cloud of dust. Like they want to play ball control. That's how they beat the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. They want to be able to put multiple backs in play. Kyler Murray, short, intermediate passing game with the occasional deep shot that we saw last year, right? To Greg Dortch or Rondale Moore, and then be a run dominant team. Like you don't take an a blocking tight end with a top 100 pick unless you're showing your cards, no pun intended. You're a run first team. And I think, again, like Brock Purdy had big statistical numbers in Kyle Shanahan's offense. That's a run first team. That's what the Cardinals are attempting to do with Kyler Murray. Drew Petzing's a disciple of the Shanahan offense. We have seen it in the NFC West. As much as these head coaches get pub, formerly Pete Carroll and of course Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, what do their teams want to do first? They want to run the football. The Cardinals have finally caught up to that, and it's going to pay dividends. Like Kyler Murray, to me, the best version of K1 includes a robust run game. Absolutely.
Yeah. Boring wins. Run the ball, play action, win football games. Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals, joining me. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Is this the brightest roadmap for the future for the Arizona Cardinals organization that we've ever seen? We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something, and this is Cardinals related. It's finally the time where relevancy is back on the menu, and we're starting to see national media already get behind the curve regarding that. A lot of lazy thoughts. Remember, I talked about this yesterday. Pro Football Network had the Cardinals offering James Conner for a 6th round pick. Like, what are we doing here? But you have to understand, whether it be media members or fans like you, that it's going to take some time for the national media to catch up on the Arizona Cardinals and what's set to be a much quicker rise back to prominence than most expected after removing Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have problems that our favorite sports teams, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals, do a great job over there with my former co-host, Bo Brock. A real family over there. Hell of a studio, man. I got to join a few weeks ago. It was actually a couple months ago at this point in studio. It's pretty sweet over there. Pretty sweet.
They do a great job. I'm fortunate to have home set up here. But yeah, the folks that are downtown Phoenix Stadium, it's second to none. And, we got over 10 plus shows, PHNX Sports. So a lot of moving parts, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right, enough pubbing, PHNX. All right, this is Locked On Cardinals. What the hell are we doing?
This is Locked On Cardinals.
I'm going to call you after this is over. No, so 2 solid drafts on paper, massive future pacing wins there if things in college were to translate to the NFL game, okay? This is no longer Marco Wilson getting drafted in the 4th round and being forced to start because the roster construction was so poor. This isn't 2019 when Patrick Peterson cheated and Byron Murphy was thrust into starting action because roster construction was so poor. This is different. Until it's not, I say so far so good. That's pretty much all you can say at this point. With how they drafted this year, how they drafted last year, Kyler Murray, which is set to be a favorable rookie, quarterback contract after this season, nothing on the books besides Kyler Murray and rookie and second-year guys next year, all the money to spend. I think it's just over $90 million. Is this the best setup that we've seen in the history of the organization, especially with the tools necessary for Monti Ossenfort to work?
Yeah, from a draft and develop standpoint, yes. I think I would still contend, and I love John again, Bruce Arians and the immediate credibility and the fact that he brought a winning culture instantly. Now, there wasn't as much work to be done, but you got the coach of the year in the NFL, and then he came and won 10 games with that roster. I still would put that slightly above it. But that had a shelf life. And we talked about that a lot, Clancy, on our show, is the Palmer years, the Warner years, the Arians years. We knew what they were. You were selling out to try to win a championship. And while that's great, I mean, as certain franchises, how that goes, not everybody's as lucky as Tampa Bay with Tom Brady and Jason Light, right? And Bruce Arians. The Cardinals are building, this is their first real attempt at sustained success with a GM and a head coach, both external hires that are on the same page, that are lockstep. And now you have a franchise quarterback in place, which is what a lot of these rebuilds don't include. And then, yeah, the influx of talent. They were the first team since the, 91 Cowboys to have 7 top 100 picks. So, yeah, let's just say you hit on half those guys, 3 or 4 picks, you're going to be cooking with gas pretty soon. And they're so methodical and smart with the way they do things. We had Brian Hartline on the show the other day, wide receiver, offensive coordinator for Ohio State. Just they've been immune from drafting and developing from these universities for my adult life. They've ignored these factories that just churn out premium players. It's tough to scout and evaluate. It's not that tough where you're going to UMass and Grambling State. And respect to those universities, the Cardinals have been so poorly run from a personnel standpoint. I think they've had some good coaches that it just hasn't mattered. They've been behind the 8 ball. They've caught up. Now, they're not a finished product by any means, but they're a product that their best players are going to be their young players. Outside of James Conner and Budda Baker, who I think probably are both done with the franchise after this year, it's exciting to look at this offense, this nucleus, the young players, the defensive talent that they brought in. So, yeah, I think sustained success, they've been immune to that as an organization for my entire fandom, livelihood following this team. This is their best opportunity when we look back. Man, this really kick-started 5-7 years of a really good run, even if that doesn't include a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and as much as I could understand the Budda Baker sign, I think James Conner's here for. I could see him signing another 2-year deal, turning to that LeGarrette Blount role. I've wanted him to be in that LeGarrette Blount role where they haven't needed him to produce like they have over the last couple seasons. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Trey Benson. But I think that with all that being true, most of that was predicated upon what happened last year because they were going to have these picks no matter what. But if Jonathan Gannon came out and made Cliff Kingsbury look good And Paris Johnson Jr. couldn't stop anybody, regardless of how good the fronts they were blocking against. And all of those things weren't working. And it looked like a clown car. We wouldn't be saying this. I think the proof of concept, the stability, the functionality of Drew Petzing's offense, irrespective of quarterback, the guys who came to play, Johnny, you, Bo, and I have a group text that we don't use that much, but we did in week 1, and I was like, what the hell is this against Washington? They were playing tougher on defense with no names than we'd seen in the Cliff Kingsbury era. And that's not knocking the players who were here, but it's a mindset. You have Josh Dobbs, who's not here for 2 weeks, who's starting. You have no real redeeming quality on that team at all, and they showed up with teeth that we hadn't seen, and it sustained through the whole year. If that didn't happen, I don't think we'd be talking as glowingly, regardless of who they drafted.
Yeah, it's a culture thing, right? And certain players can break through of poor culture. We've seen it in the past. Like Larry Fitzgerald was great despite being on some bad teams, right? You know, Budda Baker's been great and has suffered a lot of losing since he's been drafted in 2017. Yeah. Like the cream rises to the top with a lot of guys. But then there are guys like I love Michael Wilson, friend of our program. Like, is Michael Wilson succeeding under Cliff Kingsbury and the dysfunction? I think it takes Jonathan Gannon and Michael Wilson and Monti Ossenfort and Drew Petzing to put together a plan to say, we trust this kid. He had a banner off season, but he's been hurt. What do we need to do from a physical standpoint? Like, we talk about it all the time on PHNX Cardinals, Clancy. Like, the fact that they were able to secure the pick that they had while on the high wire act of Kyler Murray's coming back, but we don't know when he's coming back. We're going to set him up for success, and he's going to play almost 500 football, and we're going to trade for Joshua Dobbs, and all the rookies are going to play. Like, it was a modern NFL miracle that nobody pays attention to. They were able to pull that off, and then still got the best overall player in the draft at pick 4 because they didn't need a quarterback. Like, it's a commendable effort for them because they easily could have won. We watched every game last year. They easily could have won 6 games. They should have beaten the Giants. They should have beaten Washington. Like, they probably should have beaten Houston. They probably should have beaten Seattle in the finale. Like, they probably should have had, like, if Kyler Murray plays, they probably had like 6-7 wins last year on one of the worst rosters in the NFL collectively. That's a testament to Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort. Absolutely. That's what should get you fired up. That's why a lot of people, even though people did not love some of the picks on day 2, Ossenfort gets the benefit of the doubt, and he deserves it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I know you've watched Draft Day. The David Putney, because I GD feel like it, that was the Tip Raymond pick. It's like, we got plenty of picks. You know what? I want this guy. Don't look at his college numbers.
Ossenfort. He's earned it, right?
Yeah, he can do whatever the hell he wants at this point, which is crazy. Until he can't. But so far, so good.
If he doesn't pick Marvin Harrison Jr. 4th overall, that pick is much more polarizing. But I think most Cardinal fans, you're playing with house money at that point.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The biggest steal of the draft was Marvin Harrison Jr. It wasn't pick 38. It wasn't pick 50. It was the best player in the draft at 4. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals, Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals joining me here, taking some time out of his day, which I appreciate. What do the Cardinals have to do, if anything? You know my thoughts because I've been screaming them at you for the last week. We'll talk to Johnny next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Now, Johnny and I we're close in age, and I think I'm the elder by a couple, but I'm sure you grew up in some capacity with Green Day. I bought tickets on the Game Time app to see Green Day at Chase Field in September with Smashing Pumpkins and Rancid. And I didn't know what the vantage point would look like. I didn't know, what the price would be for different rows and different, different areas. I didn't know where the stage was. But you download the Game Time app, you search Green Day, it'll bring up Chase Field, and you can see your vantage point from the seats that you'd be choosing to buy before you buy them. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. If you want to go check out an NBA playoff game, it's all the rage right now. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, and you can buy tickets up until tip-off, man. They have last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying, whether it be sports, NBA concerts like Green Day, comedy, theater, whatever it is. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Final segment, Alex Clancy here. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked on Arizona Cardinals Everydayers. Hit that subscribe button. Johnny Venerable at Johnny Venerable on Twitter, PHNX Cardinals. One of the 1-2 punch of he and Bill Brock. So the Cardinals roster, as it currently sits, is one of the youngest in the leagues. It's going to have, again, some of the highest snap counts with rookies in key positions, whether it be corner or wide receiver, pass rusher with BJ Ojulari and Darius Robinson. It's going to be fun. We'll see what happens with Xavier Thomas and the two tackles or the two offensive linemen they drafted later in the draft. Like, it's going to be fun, okay? And if they want to get to 6 or 7 wins or 8 wins, I don't think it's enough to get them there. Now, do you think that they need to sign another wide receiver, whether it be Zay Jones or otherwise? Do you think they need to bring in a veteran pass rusher or a veteran off-ball linebacker to give Mac Wilson and Kazir White some breathers? Like, where do you let me frame it this way: where, if anywhere, do you think the Cardinals need to add veteran talent ahead of Week 1?
Pass rusher. I think it's the clear need.
Yeah.
They had Zay Jones in for a visit earlier this week. It's clear that his agent, he's doing some free agency tour. That's fine.
Yeah.
He was with Tennessee, Dallas, Kansas City. Like, part of me thinks, we've speculated, is this just his agent doing a favor with the Cardinals and vice versa? Like, I would be surprised if the Cardinals signed Zay Jones. I think the Cardinals, if you go back to what they were at the end of last year, that's who they want to be. They have 3 predominant receivers. Well, they have that, and then they've got multiple tight ends and backs. Like, sure, they can use depth if Michael Wilson, God forbid, goes down, or Marvin Harrison Jr. hits a rookie wall. Like, you'd love to have another veteran. I watched Elijah Higgins play good football in the passing game at the end of last year. We know what Trey McBride can do. Like, of course, like, I was rooting for Roman Wilson or somebody like that. Then they took Tip Raymond. So I'm going to take them at face value. That, like, we're good. We feel good about the players we have. And I'm anxious to see Clancy, like Greg Dortch, over 17 games. Like, what can he do with earning that opportunity as the dominant slot receiver? The pass rush is a problem. They went 7 weeks at the end of last year. We've outlined it on our show without a true sack. They had one throwaway sack of Justin Fields where he ran out of bounds at the line of scrimmage. So they went 7 weeks without a sack, which is almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
I like Ojulari. Zaven Collins, they love him. They adore him. I think he has a chance to stick around after this year just as a rotational player. He's never going to live up to his draft status, but he's a good locker room guy. But, like, do they have a go-get-it guy on third down? I don't think so. And I think Ojulari has the best opportunity to become that. Can he get to 8 to 12 sacks? You would hope. I think they're going to be functional from a pass rush standpoint where you're not going to have the guy. Like, Gannon doesn't have his Hassan Reddick yet. But you're going to have a bunch of guys that are in the sandbox of like 5 to 7 sacks apiece. And that's going to be enough to get you through the rigors of the season. But, like, where they struggled last year, Purdy and Stafford and even Geno Smith in the division, they went 0-6. On third down, can they force, with a 4-man front, can they get pressure? And I honestly think their defensive tackle group is more equipped to do that now with Darius and another year of Kenny Stills or Dante Stills, I should say, and Justin Jones. So, like, could a Yannick Ngakoue come in here and be like your Jonathan Abraham circa Bruce Arians and give you some juice off the edge? I would look at that. Now, I tried to find out. Yannick Ngakoue was not in Minnesota when Gannon and a lot of these coaches were there, but they'd have intel on him. Bears fans want him back. 2 years ago, he had 8 sacks. That's what I would look at. I don't know if they're going to do that. They have no sense of urgency now. That's a premium position in next year's draft. So it's like you can't fill every need in a single offseason, and the pass rush will be better. But for me, Clancy, that's the biggest glaring omission on the team easily.
Yeah, agreed. And another name that I popped into my head, even though he's been a couple years removed from relevancy, is Bud Dupree, who only made $3 million last year in Atlanta. He's a guy who isn't great actually getting to the quarterback, but can set an edge and is good in the run defense if that were the case, if he were on the field and not just a situational pass rusher. I also think with Max Melton and Elijah Jones and Garrett Williams in his second year and Sean Murphy Bunting, there'll be better coverage when not getting to the quarterback than there was last year with the, the practice squad set of corners that they had. So
it's going to improve by default. It cannot be any worse than it was.
Yeah, it was brutal. Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Johnny, let them know where they can find you guys.
Yeah, just at Johnny Venerable on Twitter, and then, of course, at PHNX_Cardinals. Find us at PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Love the growing community of Cardinal podcasts available, the diversity. Alex, we've had you on our show. Would love to have you back. Always a major player in this Cardinal space, and appreciate the time today.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, it's in the works where Johnny will be actually taking a vacation like a lazy person.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be joining Bo at the end of May over there on PHNX. So
I only trust so many people to come on that show, and
I do appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I've got a special wardrobe that I'll be wearing as a t-shirt for Bo that he does not know about yet.
Nice.
Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, this is my tagline, Johnny. Ready for this?
Yeah.
Without you, there is no me. I will talk to you tomorrow.